Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha with Ice Cream Fitness here. And today I want to discuss a topic I get a lot of questions on. I'm going to classify it as a gear talk because we're talking about gear, but this is something I get asked about a lot. And someone brought it up in the Monday Q&A thread. And I'm going to go ahead and link their question here for you. And I'm going to answer that, but hold on, let me give you guys a bicep shot first. Okay, what gets asked very commonly is one of two questions. Did actor X or Y use steroids for a given role, or other anabolic drugs or fat-burning drugs? And is their physique obtainable natural? And we need to make an important distinction between these two questions, because what you need to remember is that most actors are not dedicated athletes whose lives revolve day in, day out, 365 days a year around their training and their nutrition. Outside of a very small handful, guys like Dwayne Johnson, and previously ones like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone. So the big question becomes, is their physique obtainable naturally for a person who isn't dedicated? And oftentimes we're looking at two very, very different answers here. Yeah, they might be obtainable sometimes, some of these physiques that we're seeing for someone who's really dedicated and they bust their ass for 2 or 3 years. But a lot of these actors are people who don't really train, and when you interview them, they don't really take their training that seriously other than when they are training for a movie role. Now, we have obvious people who are very clearly chemically enhanced, who've been movie stars throughout the years. And I'm not talking about these guys. I'm not talking about the Arnold Schwarzeneggers or the current Sylvester Stallone, who has been busted for HGH. And at his age, to look like he does, you need steroids and HGH. It's just biologically impossible to have his physique at his age otherwise, no matter how hard you train. But the man does bust his ass in the gym. And anyone who's ever seen kind of what he does for training knows that. Or like your Michael Clark Duncan, or even Dwayne Johnson. So a lot of these guys are very obviously chemically enhanced, and again, that's not a negative. I am not natural myself, so I don't look down upon them for this choice in any way. And if anything, they're making millions of dollars because of it, so props to them. So the question becomes, are a lot of these actors who are making these amazing transformations for these movies, are they using drugs to do it? Well, there's a couple of things we need to look at. First of all, that first factor I mentioned of it's not their lives. Another factor we need to look at is look at the training being utilized by these people. And if you go to someone like Jamie Lewis's blog, who is a world powerlifting record holder, who has a blog called Chaos and Pain, if you check that out, every time one of these movies comes out, he does a full series and he researches the training and the diet and finds out and contacts people, and he does whatever he has to do to find out how they prepared for that movie role. And very oftentimes these trainers or these stars for these movie roles, they have them doing training that would shock you, because they'll have them lifting weights for sometimes 2 or 3 hours a day, 7 days a week. They will have them doing conditioning work on top of that. Sometimes they will have them training up to 6 to 8 hours a day for the final 3 months before the movie, and they'll have them on sometimes 4 or 5 or 6,000 calories a day with huge amounts of protein. And you see this over and over and over and over. Now, the reality is, no non-enhanced human being is going to train that way and recover. These people would bury themselves. So there alone is your first tip-off that they're using drugs for enhanced recovery. It should become very obvious. The next thing you need to look at is the amount of muscle some of these guys gain. Again, using this type of training, they should be burning out, if anything. And the amount of conditioning work you oftentimes see should be impeding muscle growth a bit. But you'll see some of these actors gain, and they're claiming, and the pictures usually confirm it, that some of them are gaining 15, 20, and sometimes up to 25 pounds of lean mass inside of a few months. 3 months or less sometimes. Okay, Noob gains can't even do that. Someone who is completely untrained and they make those amazing noob gains, it usually takes them a full year of busting their ass to hit that type of goal. Even if you have the best trainers in the world, you have a professional dietitian, a sports dietitian, and you have a PhD in exercise science coaching you, and you have the best coaches in the world, those are basically the limits of what you can do in a year. And some of these guys are doing it in just a few months. So that's another obvious tip-off that requires drugs. That cannot be done drug-free. And to even do that with drugs, the average Joe can't pull that off. They're having to have the best trainers in the world and the best nutritionists and putting them on insane training protocols to gain that much muscle that quickly on steroids and growth hormone and insulin and clenbuterol and all the other drugs you're using, because on top of that, a lot of them will lean out. Some of these guys are putting on, for some of these movie roles, 20 pounds of body weight, but they're going down 4 or 5% in body fat. On top of that, at the same time, this requires pretty copious amounts of drugs to pull that off, in addition to absurd nutrition and training protocols. You actually need the whole combination to pull something like that off in that short of a time period. And so then the question becomes, do they have an incentive to do this? Are they concerned about their health? Well, anybody who's really educated knows that anabolic steroids are safer than half the recreational drugs and shit that other people use. They're way safer than street drugs. They're not even as dangerous as having an alcohol addiction or smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. Way safer to your health. So the actors know this. When they talk to real doctors, not some of these doctors who aren't educated on it, but the doctors who really know the stuff on this, their doctors are telling them the same thing. They're not going to have problems from a very short-term use for a movie role. Very unlikely. And on top of that, a lot of actors use tons of drugs anyways. They use cocaine. And some of these actors who have made some of these recent, in the last few years, movie transformations and done these type of transformations have histories of heroin, cocaine use, and other things anyway that are documented. So these are generally not people who are afraid of drugs. So it's not unreasonable to think that a lot of them are going to do that. And the thing is, they're going to make millions of dollars off of it. If they are for reaching a certain point in a movie role or making a transformation or looking a certain way for a movie, if that movie is going to make another few $1,000,000 and they're going to make an extra $1,000,000 or $2 out of it for having done it, you can guarantee that they're going to do a 3-month course of anabolic drugs and clenbuterol and insulin and everything else. They're going to do whatever it takes. I mean, for $1,000,000, just about anybody would do a course of drugs one time or once every few years for a movie role. So you need to be realistic there in terms of the cost to benefit payoff. So are a lot of these actors using drugs for these transformations? Absolutely. And I think it's really silly when you look at all of it and you look at the way they do it, the progress they make, the risk to rewards involved. Is really silly to even question otherwise. Now, on the other hand, does that mean that some of these physiques couldn't be obtained naturally? No, some of them actually could be. But not by these individuals with their mentality and in the time frame that they're doing it. So a lot of you may be able to bust your ass for the next 3 years without drugs and still look like the guy did in the Thor movie. Or you could still look like Tom Hardy did as Bane. Or you could look like the new Man of Steel movie. You could look like the Superman character there. Yeah, you could pull that off if you bust your ass for 2.5, 3 years. You get in the gym, you eat correctly, you dedicate yourself and you train. Yeah, that can be achieved naturally. But did these people achieve it naturally? Probably not. And that's just being realistic about it. Alright guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you next time.